This is a lecture from Open Tuition. For the free lecture notes that go with this podcast, please visit opentuition.com.
We're going to go through question 5 of the December 2012 paper F5 exam. So make sure you've got the question in front of you. So let's have a look at the requirements. Part A, use traditional absorption costing, calculate transfer prices if machine hours are used for basis of absorption rather than labour hours. B, using activity-based costing, recalculate the prices. That's 8 marks. Part C, 1, calculate last month's profit for each division, for each product, and in total if activity-based costing used, 3 marks. And Part C2 over the page, given sets of figures, discuss whether activity-based costing should be implemented, 6 marks. So Part C2 is writing, so we must make sure we find some time to write a bit there with 6 marks. Otherwise, despite the mention of transfer pricing, which may give us a little bit of thought, it's essentially, certainly parts A and B, a fairly standard activity-based costing question. Anyway, let's have a go. Part A, first of all. Use traditional absorption costing. Calculate prices if machine hours are used as a basis. So let's have a look at the body of the question, and there is quite a lot to read here. We're assembling 2 types of washing machine, S and R, with 2 divisions. We're transferring machines from assembly to retail at full cost plus 10%. This has resulted in internal transfer prices of $220, $241, and S currently sells to the public for $320 and $260. The retail division's manager is convinced that if he could get R at a lower cost and therefore reduce the selling price, he could significantly increase the sales. He's questioned the fact that overhead costs are allocated on the basis of labour hours. He thinks it should be done using machine hours or activity based. So it's essentially a costing question. It says calculate the prices, but it does say the transfer price is cost plus 10%. So if we can work out the cost for S and R, adding on 10% is no problem. For part A, we're going to absorb based on machine hours. So let's work out an absorption rate first of all. It's the overheads we're absorbing, and at the bottom of that table of figures, the total overheads how much? 877,620. We're going to absorb over machine hours, so let's work out the total machine hours we expect to work. And we need the bit of information above. We know how many of each unit we're going to produce, and 4 lines down we know how many hours each unit will take. So product S, we're going to be producing 3,200, and each one takes 2 hours. Product R, we're producing 5,450, and each one takes 1 hour. So the total hours 11,850, and therefore the absorption rate, divide the cost, 620 by the hours, and it gives us 877,620 divided by 11,850, $74.06 per machine hour. Having got the absorption rate, now we can do cost cards for each. and off we go. So S and R, where are we? The costs, there's materials, 117 for S, 95 for R. Labour, $6 and $9. And the overheads, they're based on machine hours, so product S is 2 hours at 74.06. 2 times 74.06, 148.12. Product R, 1 hour, 74.06. And so the total, or the full cost, for S, 117, 6, 148.12, is 271.12. And for R, 178.06. So there are the costs. To get the transfer price, we add on 10%. Giving the transfer price for S, 298.23, and for R, 195.87. So, only 3 marks there. It took me a while, but never mind. That's part A. Let's move on to part B, where we're going to do the same thing, only using activity-based costing. Now, there are 2 ways of doing your workings. They both give the same answers. I'll do it the way I prefer, but we need to first of all look at the overheads. Let's sort out the overheads, and then I can repeat the cost card. So the overheads, take each overhead separately. So the first one is setup costs. The total is 306,435, and we're going to split that in total, the way I do it, between S and R. So forget units for the moment, we'll do it in total. So how are we going to split it? Well, there is a bit of extra information towards the end of the first set of figures. It tells us the total number of production runs, so we'll use that as the basis for splitting. And it's as well to write down the basis you're using, because if something does go wrong on your arithmetic, at least you can still get some credit for what you were trying to do. And the way we'll do it, how many production runs and therefore setups are there in total? There's 30 for S and 12 for R, so 42 in total. Well, S was 30 of them, so S will be 30 out of 42. That rate proportion of the total. R was 12 of them, so 12 out of 42. So you better check my arithmetic here, but to S, 306,435 divided by 42 times 30, I get 218,882, and to R, 87,553. Next one, machine maintenance. Look at the information we're given. We're given production runs, we're given purchase orders, and we're given deliveries. Well, the other overheads we've yet to come to. Ordering costs will go with orders, delivery with deliveries. So how are we going to do maintenance? The only information we know about the machines is the machine hours. And so I'll split the total 415,105 on the basis of machine hours. Now we've already done some arithmetic on them. If you look further up, there's how many machine hours we were working. 11,850 in total, 6,400 were for S, 5,450 in total for R. So those are the proportions I'll use. Just so that it's clear, let me show the workings here. There are 11,850 hours in total, 6,400 are for S, so that proportion of the total cost will be S, and R, 5,450. Well, again, that proportion of the total. So, again, let's hope my arithmetic's right. 11,850 times 415,105. I get 224,192 to S. And 190,913 to R. Next one, ordering costs. 11,680. Back to the earlier bit of the table, I'll base that on purchase orders. So 82 for one, 64 for the other, in total 146. So 82 out of 146 to S, and 80 out of 60, misread. 64 out of 146 to R. So to S, 82 divided by 146 times 11,680. 6560 to S, and to R, 5120. Finally, delivery costs. Total 144,400, and by now we're in the swing of it. So it's based on total deliveries. $64 for one, 80 for the other, so 144 in total. 64 over 144 and 80 over 144, which gives me 64178 to S. 8022 to R. So the totals to S, $513,712, and to R, $363,788. That's supposed to be a dollar sign. There we are. However, although I split the overheads in total, to do the cost cards, we need the overheads per unit. So that's easy enough. How many units are there of each? S, we're producing 3,200. R, 5,450. And so the overheads per unit, simply divide 513,712 to S, 160.54, and to R, 66.75. However, we're not quite there yet. remember that's just the overheads. Now we can actually do our cost cards. Just like before, but with the different overhead figure. So materials we're given 117 and 95. Labour we're given 6 and 9. Overheads, we've calculated the figures 160.54, 66.75, and so on this approach the full cost 283.54, and for R 170.75. To get the price they're charging the other division, add on the 10% profit again. And we get a transfer price this time. $31189 for R, and for S 187.83. Oh dear. So that's part B done. 8 marks. I don't think that was too bad. What about part C? Part C 1. Calculate last month's profit for each division, for each product and in total, if activity-based costing is used. Fine. The two divisions, well, remember the costings we've been doing are for assembly. And that's going to be easy because a profit assembly is making, they're adding on the 10%, so they're making 28.35 and 17.08 for each unit. Well, it wants it for each product and in total. So S first of all, how many units? 3,200. The profit is 28.35. So 90720, and for R 5450 units, 1708 the profit they're making per unit, 93086, so a total of 183,806. They're selling to the other division, which is the retail division. Now the retail division, these are the prices they're paying, the transfer prices, and they're selling them at the end of the second paragraph. S is sold for 320, R for 260, so the profit is the difference. So again, S, there'll be 3,200. The profit, well, the selling price is 320. The cost, the transfer price, is 311.89. So they're making a profit of 8.11 per unit, 3,200, 25,952. And similarly R, there are 5450 units. They're selling at 260. They're paying a transfer price of 187.83. So the profit 7217, 5450 units is 393327. Seems so. What is that right? 260 minus 187.83. 5450 units. 393327. That's right. So the total profit made by that division, 183,806. Sorry, what am I doing? 25952, 393327, 419279. It says both for each product and in total. It's not. She could have worded it slightly clearer, to be honest. My figures are correct, and that's probably all she required. However, just to be safe, since it says the total profit, let's do it for the whole company. So S and R, but for the whole company, it's the two added together. So S 90720 plus 25952, those two. And for R, one division's making 93086, the other division 393327, 486413. The total sorry, my calculator, 116672 plus 486413, 603085. Again, a bit of a rush for 3 marks, but never mind, we're nearly there. There's the total profit. Let's, though, move on to part C2. Oh, sorry, I don't know what that was. C2. It says here, we've calculated the profits that both divisions made last month using traditional absorption costing and found them to be as follows. So they've done workings there, and you can see using labour hours 603047, machine hours 603108. Given these two sets of figures and your calculations in C1, well, we've just worked out a total profit of 603085 using activity-based. Discuss whether activity-based costing should be implemented. So it's on the discussion. We're not expected to do any more numbers. For heaven's sake, don't go checking the profits that she's given there. But our job is to compare them and consider, should it be implemented? Well, several points to make here. I mean, it's 6 marks. I haven't looked at the marking scheme. I would guess probably 2 marks a point, so we're certainly looking for 3 points, but the more the better. And I think one thing you should say straight away is, remember, there's only one company, and whatever happens, the total overheads are 877,620. The total profit will be the same however we choose to split it. She's actually made the point there with those little asterisks that using labour hours and machine hours, there are small differences because of rounding. Well, our profit, again, is almost the same. Small difference because of rounding. So we do need to make that point, that the total profit will be the same whatever method is used. Now think about that, make sure you're clear that for the company as a whole there's no question the total overheads are 877,620, and the total profit will be approximately 603,000. So in that sense, it doesn't make any difference. Why bother having all the hassle of activity-based? Well, the question gives you a rather important clue. If you look at the third paragraph, at the top, the retail division's manager is convinced that if he can obtain R at a lower cost, and therefore reduce the selling price from 260 to 230, he could significantly increase the sales of R. Now, although this isn't what you might call a pricing question, you should certainly be aware that a lower price, although overall the company clearly will make less profit per unit, if they're going to increase sales, it could potentially mean more profit overall, so that could be worthwhile. However, look at the situation at the moment. Look at the figures above. If you look at product R, the retail division, at the moment they're using labour hours and they only make a profit of 99,000. If we use machine hours, they'd be making a lot more profit, and similarly activity-based, a lot more profit. And why? Because under activity-based, the cost per unit is only 187.83. The way they're doing it at the moment on labour hours, it's 195. So certainly changing to machine hours or to activity-based costing would reduce the price charged to the retail division, which could then reduce the selling price. And this could mean potentially more profit in total. More sales, therefore more total profit. So that's a big point that's got to be made. That's the only reason why it might be worth changing. And a small point that could be worth making is that if you compare, if you compare the results from assembly, where the retail they've been making 393 profit at current transfer price, with using machine hours, there's not a massive difference. And the reason is that so much of the overheads are being dealt with on machine hours anyway, it's not making a huge difference. And so it's worth pointing out that machine hours and activity-based give similar results for product R, machine hours is an easier approach in real life. Forget the numbers here. The activity-based, it takes a lot of time to decide on what's driving the costs and so on. So machine hours, easier in practice. So why don't we do it? Let's look back at the tables. Two things to consider. One is, what about the other product? That the way we're doing it at the moment, product S, the retail division's making 319 profit, whereas if we switch to machine hours, it's only making 69 for the retail division. Product S we're talking about. Switch to ABC and it's only making 25. And so if we do switch, then there's less scope for retail division to reduce prices for S It's worth mentioning, although there's no mention here that if we reduce price of S we can sell more, it's only R that the question refers to. But the other thing we need to at least mention is, what about the effect on the other division? Because the assembly manager, he obviously wants to make as much profit as he can. Look at product R again primarily. Product R, under the current system of labour hours, assembly is making 119,000. If we go to machine hours, only 97. If we go to activity based, only 90. So again, not a big difference between activity based and machine, but it will mean the assembly division is making less profit. For that reason, the assembly manager might not be happy. Assembly division will make less profit on R. What about in total before I write any more? Assembly 183, machine hours 183, more or less the same. Labour hours 183, more or less the same. So I will mention it, they'll make less profit on R if we change, and therefore might not be happy. However, total profit for assembly is not affected to a larger degree. So let me just double check I haven't written anything stupid. Assembly currently 183,000, machine hours 183,000, ABC 183,000. So it doesn't make that much difference overall to assembly, and so I will write an overall conclusion. Provided lower selling price for R will result in more sales, it could be worthwhile changing to machine hours or activity-based costing. And there we are. I think I've probably written more than would be required for 6 marks. A lot obviously depends on how much time you've got available and how fast you were on the arithmetic. But certainly she couldn't possibly expect any more than what I've written.